just hours ago, Moscow murder suspect Bryan Kohberger faced a judge for the first time in Latah County. He faces first-degree murder charges, accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students. Just hours ago, officials also released the affidavit that lays out new evidence. It also reveals a new timeline of events. We now know how investigators say they were able to link Kohberger's DNA to the gruesome crime scene. But first, let's go to Amanda Rowley. She has been at the Latah County Courthouse all morning long. She was in the room as Kohberger faced an Idaho judge for the very first time.
Hey, good afternoon. Just to be transparent, there was quite a line of media members to get into this initial appearance. When we got in, it was a very quick hearing and it was completely full of members of the media. But sitting in the front row were family members of Kaylee Gonzalez, who is one of the murdered University of Idaho students. Now, during this hearing, the suspect showed no emotion and spoke very little, meaning he only spoke when the judge asked him questions. Now, the judge read through each charge against Bryan Kohberger, 1 count of burglary and 4 counts of murder. The max penalty, as the judge read in court today, for each count of murder in the first degree is death or life in prison. Kootenai County's chief public defender, Ann Taylor, is representing the suspect. Kohberger is currently being held in Latah County Jail with no bail, and this morning his attorney argued against this. But the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, told the judge Idaho law does not entitle the suspect to a bond because of the charges against him, adding that he was arrested across the country. The judge decided Kohberger will remain in jail without bail. She also gave the suspect a no contact order. That means he's prohibited from having any contact with the victims' families, friends, and the surviving roommates. Now, shortly after the hearing this morning, the attorney representing the Gonzalez family commented on their behalf. Take a listen.
It's obviously an emotional time for the family, seeing the defendant for the first time. This is the beginning of the criminal justice system, and the family will be here for the long haul. And that's the statement for the media today. Thank you.
Now, here's what we can expect in the upcoming court proceedings. A status conference hearing is now scheduled for next Thursday at 10 a.m., and this was at the request of the suspect's defense attorney. From today, Kohberger's preliminary hearing must happen within the next 2 weeks, and during that hearing, he will have to enter a plea of either not guilty or guilty. We'll be keeping track of that and posting any updates we can as we learn more. Reporting from the Latah County Courthouse, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
With Kohberger appearing in Latah County Court, we now have court documents giving us a new timeline of the students' murders and how DNA evidence was used to track down the suspect. KREM 2's Channing Curtis and Tim Pham joining us now with a breakdown of the 18-page affidavit.
Now, Laura, that's right. We've actually been reading over this document since it was first released just before 9 this morning. So it's a lot to break down.
Yeah, we broke it to you here on Up with KREM. So let's start things off by taking a look at a new timeline that investigators laid out in this affidavit. We know now that the murders happened on the early morning hours of November 13th, but now we're getting a more detailed look at what investigators believe actually played out. The new details lead investigators to believe the deaths happened anywhere between 4 and 4:25 a.m. Here's what happened starting at 4 a.m. according to the affidavit. Police say Xana Kernodle received a DoorDash order at the house at around 4 a.m. Cell phone data also shows that she was likely awake and using the TikTok app at 4:12 a.m. A surviving roommate who lived in the house, referred to as DM in the court documents we have here, told police something woke her up at around 4 a.m. but thought it sounded like Gonzalez playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms. At 4:17 a.m., a security camera in the area picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. Then at 4:20 a.m., a vehicle matching the description of the white Hyundai Elantra was spotted in the area speeding away. A vehicle matching that same description was seen again just before 5:30 a.m. on cameras all the way in Pullman, Washington. Now, that same surviving roommate that I just told you about gives police a chilling account of what happened that early morning in this affidavit.
And it's absolutely terrifying. This roommate's bedroom was right by Xana Kernodle's, and she told investigators that she heard several several things throughout those early morning hours. Now, the affidavit says that this roommate told investigators sometime after 4 a.m. she thought she heard crying coming from Xana's room and heard a male voice say something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Then that same roommate says they opened their door for a third time that morning and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. She says the male walked past her as she stood in a frozen shock phase. She says the male walked past her toward the back sliding glass door. She then locked herself in her room. Now, that roommate also told investigators that she did not recognize the person, but she did give them a detailed description of what they looked like.
And that description, along with cell phone records around the area and area surveillance cameras and a DNA match, all led police to arresting Bryan Kohberger. Laura?
All right, thank you. And Kohberger arrived in Idaho last night, and this morning Nicole Hernandez was tracking his arrival back in Latah County. She gives us now the breakdown on his highly anticipated arrival.
Leading up to the court appearance today, Kohberger first had to make it back here to North Idaho. Pennsylvania State Police had arrested him back on Friday. This was our first look here at Kohberger as he went into a Pennsylvania court Tuesday afternoon. At that hearing, he waived his right to an extradition hearing. A Pennsylvania defense attorney says Kohberger likely did that so he could see the information in the arrest affidavit. Less than 24 hours after that court hearing, Monroe County Corrections in Pennsylvania released Kohberger to Pennsylvania State Police custody. They then got Kohberger on a plane from Pennsylvania to Moscow. That plane ride took almost all day, with Kohberger landing at Pullman-Moscow Regional Airport yesterday evening. This is video of Kohberger getting off that plane. Sheriff's deputies immediately took Kohberger here to the Latah County Jail. They drove him straight into that garage right behind me, booked him into jail, and this is where Kohberger spent the night. In Moscow, Nicole Hernandez, KREM 2 News.
Where are you headed?
We're going to Well, we're coming from WSU.
And you're going where? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
This afternoon, we are seeing a new body camera footage that came in from Indiana police during several traffic stops of Kohberger's car during his trip from Washington to Pennsylvania. Now, yesterday, we showed you a video from an Indiana state trooper who stopped Kohberger for following too closely. This video is from a separate traffic stop that happened, though, on the very same day, just minutes later. First, in this new video, you can see a deputy with Hancock County Sheriff's Office approach the white Elantra, similar, of course, to the one investigators had been searching for at the time. The deputy then says Kohberger and his father were pulled over for following a van too closely. But something to note about the video is the date and time, December 15th, beginning at 10:41 a.m. Then about 9 minutes later, Indiana State Police separately stopped Kohberger. This is at 10:50 a.m. Stopped again for following too closely. These two stops are on December 15th, happening 8 days after the Moscow Police Department began asking the public for information about a white Elantra. However, the Indiana State Police told us at that time the trooper had no information about a crime or search for a car in connection with the Idaho case. Kohberger was driving at the time he and his father were pulled over, and during the traffic stop, Kohberger talks to the officer, at that time bringing up a SWAT standoff that had happened that day in Pullman.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that incident. Just yesterday, or?
This happened about an hour and a half ago. We're still wrapping it up for investigating. I'm not sure there's two shooters because they did shoot somebody.
Let's see.
And then we don't know about that actually. They were there, they were shooting out of the window or something.
Interesting.
Now, it appears that Kohberger was not ticketed for either traffic stop. If you'd like to watch both body cam videos in their entirety, you can head to our website. We have it posted there at KREM.com. As the University of Idaho murder case continues to receive massive national attention, and in our commitment to bring you more to every story, we are taking a look at the challenges of handling a case of this magnitude. KREM 2's Shannon Mowdy spoke to a federal prosecutor and a seasoned defense attorney who actually represented Ted Bundy. This afternoon, we take a look into what goes into behind trying a case like this one.
From the beginning, the killings of 4 University of Idaho students has drawn the national spotlight. Now that a suspect is on his way back to Latah County to face charges, we're digging deeper into what the legal process may look like. I sat down to learn more about trying such a highly publicized case from someone who knows about high-profile cases. Does that make it harder with all of that attention to defend someone?
Oh, of course.
Defense attorney John Henry Brown.
You know, nobody in their right mind back in the 70s and 80s would believe Ted Bundy might be innocent.
He defended convicted serial killer Ted Bundy. And even before the age of social media speculation, Brown says defending cases with widespread attention was difficult.
I think actually since the O.J. Simpson trial, there's been a presumption of guilt. I don't think people believe in the presumption of innocence anymore.
In Kohberger's case, some details have already come out, including the use of his DNA to identify him as the suspect. Brown says that could also make this a hard case to defend.
The minute they form an opinion like, okay, a car that's similar to his car is seen at the scene, and okay, there is some sort of DNA evidence. The minute the public hears that DNA evidence, I think everybody's mind is closed.
But protecting the rights of the accused doesn't solely fall on the defense team.
Every defendant is entitled to a fair and impartial jury, and that is, part of our obligation to ensure that we are doing all we can to protect the due process rights of victims as well as defendants.
Vanessa Waldorf is the U.S. Attorney for Washington's Eastern District. Speaking in general about prosecuting cases, she says prosecutors get involved long before an arrest.
So that involvement of the prosecution is throughout the investigation to ensure that constitutional due process is met.
Waldorf says preserving those rights for a defendant also takes time for both sides. That's why it could take years to see a case through.
There is continued investigation by the prosecution and law enforcement to run down leads that might be necessary in order to move forward with a fair and just trial. And all of those matters can take, additional time.
KREM 2 also reached out to Ann Taylor, who we've learned will represent Kohberger. And as of last night, Taylor is under that non-dissemination order from the Latah County judge, which prevents her from commenting on the case, so we have not heard back.
And of course, this continues to be a developing story, and we'll continue to bring you updates as we learn more here at KREM 2. And for all of your coverage on this story, text us the word Idaho to 509-448-2000. We'll send a link with all the information and the stories right to your phone.